Welcome Home, a podcast for veterans, about veterans by veterans, is a project of Willing Warriors and the Warrior Retreat at Bull Run.
Good morning. I'm Larry Ziliak, your host, Director of Culinary Services here at the Warrior Retreat. And today we have Dave Seitz, who is the founder of 19hands.org. And they have an amazing program called Warhorse Forge. Very excited that he's here to tell us about this program. It's a program for veterans and first responders, and he's just doing an amazing job over there. So, Dave, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming and sitting down with us today.
Thanks, Larry. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about 19hands.org, the actual nonprofit that runs the program, how it came to be, and really what's background to that, and the name, of course. That confused me right off the bat.
Yeah. So 19 Hands is a nonprofit that my wife and I came up with probably, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago. I'm terrible with my timeline, but it was we had gone to lunch with one of her coworkers' husbands and her, and they had, her husband had some PTSD, some issues that he had and stuff like that. And the wives just kind of wanted to get us together because they thought, both served in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing a new project where he had gone up to the Wounded Warriors Foundation and taken a railroad spike knife class, making a knife out of a railroad spike.
Sure.
He loved it, hook, line, and sinker, went out and bought an anvil, bought a forge, but they were living in a townhouse in Arlington. So he didn't have a place to spread out, and he didn't have a place to go whenever he wanted to go.
I just think that's hysterical. I live in a townhome.
There you go.
So the idea of buying a forge when you live in a townhome just is crazy. Well,
right.
Okay. Somehow did you end up with it?
No, yeah. So what I did was I said, hey, we met, we got it, we hit it off great. He's kind of an introvert and stuff, but I could see the fire in his eyes when he talked about this hobby of blacksmithing and everything. Now, I've lived on my farm for 20 years, so I've been around. I've had horses the whole time. A lot of people said, so well, blacksmithing and having horses is all hand in hand. It is, but for me, it wasn't. The shoeing was something that I was never going to touch. I can do it, and I can repair shoes because I've done that with all my kids growing up on the farm, and my girls were riding dressage and stuff. So if a shoe came loose, I could get the hammers and I had the tools and everything and I could fix it, but it was never something that I wanted to learn. It was something that I wanted to pay for. Cause if you're, lose a nail, lose a shoe, lose my kingdom, that's exactly what can happen with one of these guys. So a horse rather. So I never spent any time focusing on that. I focused on the other care and feeding of all the animals that I've had.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just one. And anyway, I had this shed. And it was just full of all these projects I was going to get to one day. And so we said, I got plenty of room down there. So we just kind of pushed everything back and moved it out of the way, and a couple trips to the dump and got rid of some of that stuff and then set up his forge and his anvil and stuff like that. And he was teaching me stuff and I was teaching him stuff, and we were kind of going back and forth, and we made some railroad spike knives, and we made some belt buckles, and we were just kind of, looking on Pinterest and looking on YouTube and, hey, look at this, hey, look at that kind of thing. And we were scrounging up metal, and we'd buy a little bit of metal from Home Depot or Lowe's, square stock, round stock, stuff that you can make hooks out of and everything like that. And it was just kind of like a weekend thing. We weren't doing it every day. We weren't doing it every weekend, but it was something that we both enjoyed. Pretty soon, we're telling our friends about it. We're showing stuff that we're doing, and all of a sudden we've got our friends are coming, our family's coming down, and everybody's like, this is so great, this is so cool, and everything like that. And then one thing led to another, and the passion that both of us had for this was something that we knew that there was something special there. And so that's when we started Black Horse Forge. So that was the first forge that we started on the property. And then, like like happens a lot of times when you have that kind of passion, two guys going, and it wasn't about, following the ABCs of how to set up a nonprofit, how to set up a business, everything like that. It was just getting people in the door, bring people in and let them experience this the way we have and enjoy it and see what happens, right?
Sure.
And so that was that. Then that was, hey, well, we're going to do a nonprofit, so we did the nonprofit. Well, like a lot of relationships, it starts out with a lot of passion, a lot of energy. Everybody's focused in the right direction, and all of a sudden, money comes into the mix, and then that's when we split. We had gotten, we were chosen by the guys from Forge and Fire,
Okay.
and they said, "Hey, would you be our charity?" I said, "Oh yeah, we'd love." They were doing a series on the Judges Challenge, and the judges were competing against each other, and whichever judge won, they won, $5,000, and that goes to their charity. Okay, so Ben Abbott had called us and said, "Hey, can you be my charity?" And we said, "Absolutely, we'd love to do it." And
Right.
and then we moved on down the road there, but that's kind of where the split occurred. And we said, okay, so like two grown adults. Okay, you take half, I'll take half, and we split it in half. And they're doing a lot more higher grade knife kinds of things, and we're still doing the basic blocking and tackling. I love doing it's wonderful to be able to share that aha moment with these guys when they come in and they pound that railroad spike knife out the first time. And it's also really kind of neat too, because when we first started, 80% of the guys, when they signed up for a class, were signed up by their wives. They were like, "Hey, sweetheart, you're laying on the couch, you're watching Forge and Fire, and you're talking. Now it's time for you to go do. Look what I found. Boom. Right here in Stafford County, we've got our own forge." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know it was there. Oh, it was great." And so everybody comes in and they're all, everybody's quiet and hush hush and everything like that because they don't know anybody, but they know that they're either a vet or first responders because it was free classes for vets and first responders.
And this split is where the name Warhorse Forge
Yes.
came about. Okay.
Right.
So that was the beginning of Warhorse Forge, which focuses on veterans and first responders. Okay. Really quickly, we'll pick up there again, but just give us a little bit of your military background.
Okay. So I was an armor officer in the Army for 20 years. And my last duty assignment was at the Pentagon. I was a staff officer up there. I had tours. I was a tank company commander in Desert Storm. I was a major down in Fort Stewart, Georgia, and did a deployment to Kuwait and did a deployment to Egypt. Egypt was an exercise. Kuwait was Desert Fox, which was a little incursion that we had shortly after. Well, it was about 5 or 6 years after Desert Storm had been done. And then while I was a staff officer in the Pentagon, I came up hot for prostate cancer. So that was a good sign from the good Lord to say, "Hey, stud, it's time for you to step aside." And so I did. And the reason I tell that story is really kind of cool because while I was recuperating from my surgery, I'm cancer-free for, what was that, 2004. So almost 20 years now. So everything's just absolutely fine. Fantastic. Just really, really young at 38 to have prostate cancer that much, that bad, and then to have the whole prostate removed. But it worked out great. It was a wonderful blessing. But anyway, all the kids went to the same high school. And that was really that's a real big deal for military families and stuff to there wasn't going to be any more jumping around. If I would have stayed in at the lieutenant colonel and colonel level, then there's going to be a lot more moving, a lot quicker. And it makes it a little more challenging. So that was an absolute blessing. When I got out, we stayed right where so we were recuperating. We were going to a garage sale, and there was a little old lady out in the front yard pounding in a for sale sign. So we pulled in. My wife looked at me and she goes, "What are you doing?" We had always talked about getting a horse farm. She grew up in Kentucky and everything like that. And so that she'd always been around saddlebreds, and the girls had ridden saddlebreds. And so there's like, okay, but that's not what we ride here in Virginia. In Virginia, we do the dressage, and we do hunter jumpers, and we do Western. I mean, they do that, but we were kind of hunter jumper dressage people. And so that's what we did. But anyway, not to make this too boring, but so we bought the farm, and I retired the next year. And then I went back to work as a Beltway bandit. I was doing business development and
Sure.
things like that for like the next 10 or 15 years. And then it came down to where where I had met this other couple, and we decided to go ahead and do the forge thing. And we just said, hey, this is it's really big. It's really going to be good, and it's something that's going to require me to step away,
Full-time attention.
step away and do it the right way.
Sure.
And make yourself available. And so that's what we did.
Right.
And it's really been wonderful.
How do you get the word out to veterans that the program's available? It's through social media, word of mouth?
We do a little bit of social media. So what we do is we list our classes on Eventbrite.
Oh, okay.
And so it is a lot of word of mouth. And the guys and gals that know how to use it's usually the wives and girlfriends that know how to use Eventbrite. They'll see that stuff and they pick it right up. And I'm not that savvy with the social media stuff, but I'll tell you, we don't have a big marketing campaign because I have a backlog for every one of my classes, every single one of them. So we've expanded just recently in the last 3 or 4 months where we have 6 anvils. So now we can have 12 people in a class. Usually what I like to have is 2 people per anvil.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 4 anvils for like the first 4 years that we were running. So it was like 8 people in a class. And then you got a couple of forges going. And the movement in and out. A railroad spike takes about 6 hours. So that's going to be the one class for the day.
Mm.
And then we'll do, and then I've got grandbabies. So so I'm only going to teach those classes every other weekend. So we'll do a class on Saturday, a class on Sunday, and then we'll take the next weekend off because we've got a life too. We want to spend time with our family and kids, and there's a lot of other stuff to do around the farm
I bet.
to keep me going. But the naming convention, I adopted a horse from the Army, from the old guard. His name was Gordy. He was a Percheron. He's a big black horse.
Right.
He's a French Percheron, which is called a war horse. And so that's where war horse came from. And that's where black horse came from. Initially, black horse came from Gordy. And then because we had to split, somebody got the name. And then, of course, I was going to keep the horse. Black horse. So they left with black horse. And then we stood up 19 hands because Gordy is 19 hands tall.
Wow. Yeah.
And then we said, well, not only is he 19 hands tall, but he's a war horse. So let's, we kind of stay with the conversion of the horse. Yeah. Wow. So it really worked out well.
Tell us about a class. So if I'm interested and I want to make a knife out of a railroad spike, or just my wife signs me up for a class, what does that entail? What's going to happen there? Is it a 1 day, 2 day, a week? What?
Yeah. So the railroad spike. So what's going to happen is your wife is probably going to find it up on the website. So if you go up on our 19 Hands website, it's going to say for programs or classes. You click on a button that takes you to Eventbrite. It's just like buying tickets for a baseball game or a concert. Okay. And you look at they're listed up there. You look at the ones that you want, and it tells you what we're going to do. We're going to take a railroad spike. We're going to turn it into a knife. That's going to be a 6-hour class. Usually starts at about 8 o'clock in the morning. We get done by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we tell everybody to bring their lunch, what to wear, what clothes to bring. Really like cotton-based clothes instead of any kind of polyester stuff, just in the event that, some of the spark flies or something like that. It doesn't burn into you. It'll burn off of you. It's easier to put out that way if you're cotton on fire than polyester on fire. They come in 8 o'clock. We get started, go around the horn. I introduce myself. You introduce yourself. Tell me as much as you want to tell me about it. Hey, I was in the Army. Good enough. Hey, I was in the Army. I was on tanks. I was, what was in Desert Storm, as much as you want to share. And just so everybody kind of gets an idea. And then it's really kind of neat because that's where the group dynamics start forming. And it's like, okay, great. Oh, look, it's, 2 Army guys against 4 Marines, or it's, 2 Army guys against, 4 Air Force guys, or there's the lone Coast Guard guy, and we're gonna pick on him a little bit, kind of thing. And so there's a little bit of, a little bit going back and forth. But the other thing that's really kind of neat is a lot of times these guys will come in with their neighbor, or they'll come in with their battle buddy. And that's the other half of it. Say, hey, you don't have to be a vet or first responder if a vet or a first responder is bringing you in as the battle buddy.
Right.
And so that works out really, really well. And with adults that have adult children, they can bring them in as well. We like to stay, I'm kind of a stickler. I like to stay up around, 16, 17, 18 years old, just to make sure that maybe the language or the bantering doesn't get a little bit too crazy, because we're all military or we're all first responders and stuff like that. So it can get, but we all don't do some family, we'll do some family, parent-child classes.
Oh, no.
But anyway, going back to the railroad spike. So it's about 30, 45 minutes of instruction. Here are the tools. Here's what the forge is. Here are the safety issues that you be care of. Here's how you're going to use the hammer. Here's how we use the tongs to move the metal in and out. Everybody gets on the anvil and they do a little bit of hammering cold, just so they can kind of feel the resistance of, and making sure that the tongs work, that they're feeling comfortable holding on to something, and then hitting it cold, because what we're going to do is we're going to heat that thing up to 1800 degrees, and that's when it gets exciting. Exactly. So when they're warming up, a lot of times, elbows will be in, and they'll be, they're trying to hold that railroad spike down on top of the anvil, and say, okay, guys, relax. All right, all the muscles and veins are showing in your hands, and you're not going to last all day if you're squeezing it that hard. So we're going to stretch out a little bit, and come in, because once I heat this thing up, you're not going to want it that close to you.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've got some exercises and things that we go through, practice putting it in and out of the forge, so that everybody kind of understands what it is. And then we go ahead and fire the forges up, and away we go. And then I usually have one or two other blacksmiths with me. So it's not just me. It's just my guys that, if you look on the website and on YouTube and stuff, if you Google us and you see it, and it's always, Dave's the only one that does any talking. Well, because I'm the colonel. But I've got some great guys that have been blacksmithing with me for a long time. And yeah, they learned everything that they know from me, but they just keep coming back and coming back, coming back. Anyway, so first thing we're going to do is draw out the blade. And so we hammer that out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to twist the handle. So we draw it out, and then we leave about 4 fingers worth of railroad spike that we don't hit, that's close to the head of the spike. And that's where your handle's going to be. So once we get the blade drawn out nicely, it doesn't have to be perfect, then we're going to go ahead and heat the other end up, put it in the vise, and take a pipe wrench and twist the top of it. And that's always a big aha, a moment for everybody, because it's like, man, that is so cool. And it does. It turns out it really does turn out really, really nice. And it kind of gives you something, hey man, look what I did, kind of thing. Right? So then we get done with that, we're going to go back on the anvils, and we're going to finish that blade up. We want to make the spine nice and thin. We want to make the blade as big and as wide as we can. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back on the grinders, and that's when we're going to clean it up. And that's a whole nother form of therapy. And there's actually a brand of blacksmithing, if you will, that we call material removal, where guys will actually buy a piece of metal that's shaped like a knife, and we call that a blank. And they don't want to do the kinetic. They don't want to be in there hammering this thing out. Right. Or they want something that's really, really nice. So they buy a piece of what we call Damascus pattern steel. Right. You buy that online, you bring it in. So you don't want to tear that up. No. You just want to get in there and grind on it. Make a beautiful bevel. Go ahead and get a sharp edge on it. Put a awesome set of handles on it, where we take different kind of material that we have available. There's also all kinds of material that you can buy online. Anything from deer antlers to some of them. It's not real ivory, but it's a material that's like that, and it looks like that. Yeah. And then there's all other kinds of wood, treated wood that's already hardened, so that it's going to make a fantastic set of handles, and it's going to stay on the knife for a long, long time. Wow. We're not going to do that with the railroad spike. That's the material removal for another day, and that's usually a 2-day class, because the simple fact that once you hammer on the not to get the two confused, let's go back to the railroad spike real quick. So once we get it on the grinder, we grind it all down, and we look at everything, and everything looks just perfect. It's nice and straight. Then we're going to quench it. And by quenching it, we're basically taking the metal, and what we want to do is we've been heating it up for 4 or 5 hours, in and out, in and out, in and out. So all the molecules are moving around and moving around. Now we want to lock that thing into place. Mm-hmm. So we're going to quench it, and we can either quench it in oil, or we quench it in what we call super quench. which is a recipe we got from a gentleman at a trade show. It's the same kind of quench that they use for aluminum parts on aircraft. It's Dawn dishwashing soap, salt, and jet dry. Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely, it's amazing.
And water?
And water. And
Okay.
what ends up happening is you go ahead and put that metal in there, and it actually makes the metal brittle. So then what you have to do, and then we're going to bring it out, we're going to clean it up, make it all shiny again. We usually use a wire wheel on the grinder, or we use a wire wheel on the drill, depending on what your skill and ability level is. If you're not comfortable, the one on the grinder can be a little bit menacing because it goes so much faster.
Right.
The drill is just easier to control. If you put it in a vise and you're standing there, it's just a lot easier on you. And
Sure.
come on, you learned a lot today. You really need to learn how to use that wire wheel thing. So we get that, excuse me, we get that all done, and then we're ready to go ahead and oil it, and then you're going to take it home. And then what you need to do is temper it. You need to put it back in the oven in your kitchen at 400 degrees for 2 hours, and do that twice. And what that does is it brings the metal back to where it's not brittle anymore, where you can actually use it to, whether you're going to use it as a letter opener to cut open letters, or you're going to go gut a couple deer and stuff like that. So that's kind of the gist of the railroad spike.
Mm-hmm.
The 2-day knife class is going to be, we're going to make the blade, we're going to temper the blade, then we're going to put the handles on it.
Okay.
Because that's the catch-22 is really you have to have the metal in, because you don't want to put the handles in the oven. That's not going to work. So we want to go ahead and do that overnight. And I've got a double oven in my shop, and that's what we use that for. A lot of people think it's for pizzas and cookies, but that's not it.
Double duty.
That's right. So that's kind of it in Dutch. And it's a cleaning up the blade and everything to make it look real nice. And that's kind of so really the 2-day knife class. I mean, it's only probably about 6 hours, but I need that break in the middle.
Sure.
Because we need 4 hours to get the metal back into a usable state.
Yeah. I know that we host here Captain Wooten, who's the chaplain with the Soldier Recovery Unit at Fort Belvoir, and she's been bringing out groups for moral injury. And I know that you have a mobile operation, and you came out and did this with some of the soldiers that she had brought out here. Tell us a little bit about that, how that went.
That was fantastic. I mean, we do have, we're able to, because we get a lot of requests. I think I did 8 demonstrations this year. It was something that we've done it before, but it was, we kind of went out and bought a smaller forge that we can actually pick up and put in, and the forge doesn't require any electricity. It's just propane gas. And so that makes it easy. And then we usually bring a vise. And the vise is there so that we can do twisting, and that's a third hand. That if you want to try to straighten something out, or especially if you're trying to show people, this is what we're doing, and this is a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
Instead of standing there waving it in front of them where they can't see the whole thing, you could put whatever the piece of metal is into the vise and then explain. If you turn it this way, you're going to get this effect. If you turn it that way, you're going to get that effect. And where they'll actually see it and go, oh, okay, I get it, and now I can understand. Same thing with what we did with the chaplain was we had a railroad spike, and then we had some square stock, and we were making hooks. And just when you start twisting that metal, it's just it takes on its own character, and you're just like, wow, that's really cool. Now that I did that, I don't want to disrupt it. I don't want to hit it on those ribs, because they look so cool. I mean, they just really look great. And so there's some other techniques that we use. There's a wooden mallet that we use everybody was just like, you can't use that on this orange hot steel. It's just gonna burn up. Well, it smokes a little bit. We're not holding it on. We're hitting it quickly. Right. So that went off really, really well. We had, I think it was 6.
Yeah.
Of the guys that came in and hit. And again, it was small. It was a quick, I think we were up here for like 4 hours and stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun. There was really a lot of aha moments. Some of her staff was there as well, and they were like, "Oh, my husband is going to be so jealous," And so the business card comes out and it says, "Hey, if you want to have them come down," I said, "I'm closer to them than you are
Yes.
here. And so I said, and I would love to have anybody come down from Belvoir that wants to go ahead and learn something. And we do the best we can. I actually have a wheelchair in my shop that I use to train my guys on how to facilitate someone that is in a wheelchair to move back and forth. We've had a couple of amputees that have shown up. And I've had one guy that was in a wheelchair to show up, and it's just they don't like the gentleman that was in the wheelchair. I cut a stump shorter for him so I could bring the anvil down, and he's like, "Don't do that. I wanna do it just like everybody else does it." And I was like, "Okay." So it wasn't going to be raising the chair up, but he knew how to get around.
Yeah.
With the chair, and so it was very educational for me, very educational for my guys, so that when we have that opportunity, then we can say, okay, this is, and they don't always have to be wheelchair bound. It could just be guys that have mobility challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that everybody in Captain Luton's group raved about it, and they just had a great time. One of the things I wanted to talk about is funding. For our listeners, the webpage is 19hands.org, www.19hands.org. And there's a place to donate on the webpage?
Yes.
Okay. So you do have a fundraiser coming up, though.
Yes, we do.
Tell us about that.
So every year we do cookies with the Clydesdales. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but the farm is transitioning into an agricultural tourism business. Okay, we've got 2 Clydesdales, 3 miniature donkeys, and alpacas. And the alpacas we got, my wife is learning how to spin the fiber into yarn and to make things. And so we're all into the alpacas are just really, really interesting characters. And the herd fits very, very well together.
How many do you have? 3. Okay.
A white one, a tan one, and a black one. So they're really a lot of fun, and they're super, super sweet. And everybody gets along really great. But anyway, getting back to cookies with the Clydesdales. So the 9th of December,
okay,
is the day. The bad news is it's already sold out. It sells out in about 3 days.
Wow.
And so on the 1st of October was when we went ahead and opened up ticket sales. We use Eventbrite, but as I had mentioned before. And so what you can still do though is you can go up on Eventbrite, get on the standby list. And then what we'll do is, because each slot or ticket on Eventbrite was for 10 people. So if I had someone that went ahead and got a ticket, and then they send me back the release waivers, and there's only 5 release waivers, then I know I've got room for 5 more. So I will move someone off the standby list back onto the active list. The other thing you can do is we're getting ready also to put on the website our volunteer website. So have another event, or it's like Eventbrite, but it's just to collect volunteers. And what you will see on there are there's 5 stations for the event. We've got the blacksmith demonstration, and there's also a smelting demonstration. That's one thing. We've got a gift shop. We've got a professional photographer that's going to take pictures, family pictures. So you got to come dressed in your Christmas outfits. So it's a professional in front of our wedding carriage. And then we have pictures with the Clydesdales and the other animals up in the barn. So that's and then we've got a food tent, and we've got a bonfire for the kids to make s'mores.
Oh, nice.
And then last year we had live music, and this year we have live music. So that's another thing. It's just, we've got lots of places. Obviously, when you have 900 people coming, 5 tickets every 15 minutes is kind of the flow that goes in. We've never really had a log jam, if you will, where there was a lot of standing around and stuff like that. It's a little 5-acre farm, but the flow goes, and it really, really works.
The tickets are timed?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not timed as start, stop. It's timed as start, and then you stay as long as you want.
Sure.
And then everybody kind of gets it, and they just start moving out. Santa Claus will be there.
Nice.
So the kids will be able to get their picture taken with Santa Claus and see that. We actually moved Santa Claus out of the last year we had him in a horse trailer, all decorated up. And this year I went and built a run-in. So I've got a real real nice run-in barn with sliders on it. So he'll be in there, like a lot warmer for him and Mrs. Claus, and a little bit more room. But the kids really love getting in the back of the horse trailer. They thought that was pretty neat. But yeah, so if you can't, get on, so you're on the standby for the ticket. Okay, right. That's great. But if you go on the volunteer website and you sign up to volunteer, then what we're going to do is we're going to mark your name on the standby and we're going to move you in. So if you volunteer in the morning, we're going to give you a slot in the afternoon so that you can bring your family.
Nice.
Or vice versa. If you take an afternoon slot, bring your family in the morning, and we just go back and forth because we can never have enough volunteers. It's very, very important. And everybody has a really good time. And the volunteers are well marked. We have, we give them aprons. Mm-hmm. And it has a patch on it. Each year we do a different patch for cookies. And so it's going to have a Clydesdale on it. It's a green apron that you wear, and it goes over that way it fits over the top of your winter clothes if it's a rainy day or snowy or anything like that.
Wow. Great. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So plan ahead. I guess you're going to do it next year too.
Yes. Now, the good thing too is once you end up on one of my lists and I have your email, then you're going to get notified before the next time around. Now, I also notify you when I get ready to list my classes. I list the classes quarterly, and then what it does, and then if once you get on and say, hey, look, the only thing I'm interested in is cookies, so you don't need to send me, then that's fine. I'll take you off one list, leave you on the other one, just so that we can. I guess that's probably a better way to describe how do I market. That's market.
Okay. So, and really, the best way to get on the list, I'll tell you a secret, is to go to the webpage and make a donation.
There you go.
Okay. And when you make that donation, you'll be on the list and you'll get notified next year so you can get in there and get those tickets for the 2024 Cookies with Clydesdales. Well, it does sound like a lot of fun. It's an amazing program. It's really doing great work for veterans and helping veterans with issues. One of the biggest problems that veterans have is that they can easily spiral down when they don't have anything to do. And giving them this and the ability to interact with other veterans while they're doing it is really a godsend. And it's a great organization, and I encourage everybody to check out the webpage, 19hands.org, make a donation. Just click on that donate button and help support this program so it can continue to reach out to veterans and first responders. Dave, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Larry, thanks for asking me. I appreciate it. It was great.
So for our listeners, we'll have another episode next Monday at 5 a.m. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can reach us at podcast@willingwarriors.org. Until then, thanks for listening.
The Welcome Home podcast is brought to you by Willing Warriors, a nonprofit organization serving active duty service members and veterans since 2012. To learn more, please visit our webpage at willingwarriors.org.